Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Manufacturing Tomorrow's Workforce. In order to expand our workforce conversations, we're tapping into the experience of our editors here at Putman Media. Today, Christine Lefebvre-Grace, Managing Editor at Putman Media's Plant Services magazine, hops on the line with Chandra Brown, newly appointed Executive Director of the Digital Manufacturing and Design Innovation Institute. They talk about how combining innovative digital technology and workforce development can make U.S. manufacturing more competitive. All right, here's the interview.
U.S. manufacturing enjoyed a pretty banner year in 2018. But manufacturers are still contending with a few pretty significant challenges. Among these, the dual challenges of, number one, filling their workforce pipeline to replace retiring baby boomers, and number two, trying to figure out how new digital technologies can help them do things differently, whether that's maintenance management or budget forecasting or adopting service-based business models. How can they balance these challenges? And how can tackling both workforce development and digital simultaneously help make U.S. manufacturing more competitive? I'm Christine Lefebvre-Grace, Managing Editor of Plant Services magazine, and to get perspective on those questions today, I'm talking with Chandra Brown, who took over in September as Executive Director at the Digital Manufacturing and Design Innovation Institute in Chicago. Previously, she served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Manufacturing in the U.S. Commerce Department under President Obama. And before that appointment, she worked for 19 years at Oregon Iron Works. Chandra, thanks so much for being here today.
It's a pleasure, Christine.
All right, so, from your perspective, how does workforce development fit into the puzzle when it comes to helping manufacturers move farther down the digital path?
Workforce development is absolutely critical to the future competitiveness of manufacturers in the United States. So we think it does not only fit into the puzzle, it is probably one of the most critical pieces of this puzzle. So we know that a strong, skilled workforce is critical for the implementation of digital technology. They go hand in hand. And I think that's, one of the common misconceptions is that digital is all about automation or talking about big data. But in reality, it is about the workforce just as much as it is about the digital side. None of it is possible without our people. That's the most important asset we have at a company.
Right. And it's such a challenge when it's hard to get people, in the door in some cases to get over misperceptions about manufacturing careers. What are some of the things that you see that U.S. manufacturers are struggling with, or the kinds of skills that they need, and maybe even how they can reach out better to say, hey, this is what a manufacturing career in America looks like today, and come be a part of this exciting future.
Absolutely, because it is a really bright and growing future, and we know we have pipeline issues. So the perspectives that are really needed today are around agility, and you need to realize that digital technologies, they can be applied to every stage of the manufacturing life cycle. So they cut across everything, and a lot of people don't realize that. It's not just on a future factory floor or in your IT or cybersecurity department, right? It's across the board. So every manufacturer really has to assess where they have their problems, where they have their expertise, and apply it across. And I'm really proud because your question is such a valid one. We here at the DMDII, the Digital Manufacturing and Design Innovation Institute, we created literally a jobs taxonomy. It lists roughly 165 roles and talking about the roles of the future because we want to help companies. Sometimes they don't even know what they're looking for. There's new jobs like digital ethicist, and things that people haven't even thought about. And so it's publicly available. Anyone can go look at it on our website. So that's one of the ways we're trying to help even define what are these future jobs.
Right? That's fascinating. So in 165, who would think, that you'd have that kind of volume? Something like a digital ethicist. Like what kind of role does that, what does that entail? What does that look like?
Well, so that's a great question, and there's as we've said, lots of different roles. For example, a digital ethicist, you have to look at how you're using data. This is one of the paradoxes. As you get more data, you need to protect it. You need to think about how it's being used. And so it's a really creative, like that's one of the newest jobs that are out there. And I even want to say, even these 165, we're hoping to expand on this. Some of these jobs could already be changed and outdated, and we need to add new jobs into the taxonomy. That's how rapidly this area is changing.
That's fascinating. So can you tell me a little bit about, your work, as executive director of DMDII now for the past few months? What are you charged with, and what are some of the things that you're really looking forward to in this coming year?
Oh, well, I am excited because the future is bright. I mean, our goal is to really help U.S. manufacturers become more competitive in the digital space. The digital thread, as we talked about, cuts across everything. So we do really innovative research and development projects here. We're looking at things in the future like digital twin and supply chain. And we're also very focused on workforce. That's exactly the topic of this podcast, in that we are looking how are we training the future workforce. So one of the things I'm most excited about in 2019 is we're just starting to develop basically a digital assessment where we can go into manufacturers and help analyze where are you at on kind of the digital roadmap, because a lot of companies don't even know where you're at, so how do you know where you want to go? So that's one of the things I'm really excited about in the coming year, is to develop this assessment and then being able to take it out to companies. Same with cybersecurity. It's another one of our big emphasis in 2019, basically because, again, as I said, as we have more data, that's great, and more sensors, and we're able to learn so many different factors. At the same time, the more data you have, the more sensitive that becomes and the more critical to your business. Right. So you need to make sure you have the ability to protect this data. So that is another one of our focuses in the future.
And like you say, it's so critically important, but as this evolves so quickly, we hear all the time from people, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what we need and will need. So being able to get out there and help people evaluate where they are and where they're going to need to be, it seems like such a powerful tool. You've worked with companies that are at different points along the digital journey and stuff. From what you've seen both in the private sector in your own experience and at DMDII, so there's companies that are kind of successfully navigating some of these challenges. What are some of the keys you've seen to their success?
Oh, that's a great question, because if we really had the secrets to all success, we would bottle it. What I would say is, what I've found that companies are most successful, and even for myself as I run this institute, I like to think about 5 major lenses that we look at in terms of success. So what do you really need to be successful, and what have I seen? One, you have to start out with vision. The vision, we can't even, as you said, guess what the future is going to hold. Change is happening so fast. So you need a company, you need leadership that have good vision and that can kind of understand and lead through ambiguity, if you will. The second of the 5, I would say, and we kind of talked about this, is the ability to understand and lead through paradoxes, through changing times. So basically, as we talked about, more data actually requires more interpretation, right? The quicker you get data, the more quickly you have to change. So it's a very interesting way of looking at how you move forward. So companies that can do that often are ahead on the digital thread. I would say the third, and this is one of the most important, and it's kind of what we're about here, is collaboration. You can't do this digital journey alone. You really need partner networks, working with your customers, your employees. You really have to have great communication and feedback loop with continuous improvement, because the pace of innovation is increasing day by day. So the more you can collaborate and lessons learned from others in these emerging fields, the better off you will be. That's why we have memberships, and we have companies that become members here, because we want to collaborate on what are the lessons learned and the best things that we can help them with as they move down the digital chain. or up the middle digital chain, as you would say. I'd say the fourth key to success is diversification. Again, as you talk about all this different data and information streams and creativity, you really need to foster diversity within your company, within your communications. It's just such a dynamic and changing environment that the more diverse you are and the more you embrace that, I also think is a key advantage to moving forward. And finally, I think the fifth, I would say, is transformation. And by what I mean about that is it's not really about just adopting what's out there or integrating. This is really, digital is transformational. This is a fundamental shift in how manufacturers are going to do business in the future. That's why we think it's really important to our competitive advantage here in the United States. So you kind of have to think of it that way, that it's transforming, so that you need the right talent for that.
Yeah. All right, so let's say I'm a small to mid-sized manufacturer, and I recognize I got a lot to do in front of me to get to where I need to be. And we hear all about collaboration is so important, collaboration partnerships are so vital. Where can I start? How can I reach out, whether it's DMDII, or what are some of the first steps that I can take?
That is a great question. So obviously, I welcome all your listeners. We would love, especially even the small companies, we would love them to become a member at DMDII. But I do really want to call out, it isn't just about any one institute. I'm very proud of the work that we're doing here. But the reality is, for example, there are 14 national manufacturing institutes across the United States. All of us are national institutes. We're trying to help solve problems that no one company can solve on their own. So we all have different areas of expertise, from lightweight metals to sensors. So I really encourage anyone with an interest in kind of competitiveness in the manufacturing space that they look at these 14 different institutes. I mean, our whole purpose is bringing together the government, because obviously we have government funding, our members, and that ranges from very small businesses and startups all the way up to large multinational corporations. And I don't want to forget the importance of our academic partners too, because they're also critical to this ecosystem as they do their research and development, and we try to take that and apply that, to more useful outcomes as we move forward in these really innovative areas. So I would say, look, there's national institutes all around the United States. There's manufacturing extension partnerships. They're part of the U.S. Department of Commerce in most states. Again, there's a lot of valuable resources out there for people to tap into, and many of these are free. So I think that's one of the places I would say to start. Find your institute, and we're national institutes, so we serve every state, so anyone can join.
Yeah, nobody can do it alone, but nobody's getting there, without the partnerships and the collaboration with each other. And it's great to know that everybody's in the same boat to some extent, and there are great resources available.
Absolutely.
Shonda, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. It was great talking with you. Again, thank you for joining us today with Manufacturing Tomorrow's Workforce, and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, Christine.
Well, that was Christine's interview with DMDII's Chandra Brown. Thanks for listening to this episode of Manufacturing Tomorrow's Workforce. And don't forget to subscribe and write a review to help your colleagues find this podcast.